Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Billy Napier, the Florida Gators, for a lack of better terms, just getting embarrassed in front of their home crowd week one against the Miami Hurricanes. And I rewatched it Sunday morning, and a lot of the thoughts and opinions that I still had Saturday afternoon, still apply to watching this game back on Sunday morning. And I think the conversation that a lot of us need to have is, how long does Billy Napier have left as the head coach of this Florida program? Where you look at going into year three, this is when you expected to see changes being made and those changes being implemented and seen on the football field. And you just didn't get that. And I get I get the point of view where you're going to say, all right, what's one football game? We got 11 more football games left to go, but this was an important football game. And like it or not, that is how college football works. I'm a Michigan fan. That game against Ohio State at the end of the year, that matters a little bit more than all the other 11 games. This game mattered a little bit more than the other 11 that we're going to see on the schedule. And for Billy Napier to not only just come out and lose this football game, but have the performance that they had, at least in my opinion, this is inexcusable. Now, I want to get into, what went wrong for this Florida program, get into, what does the future look like for this Florida program. Now, before we get into it, I would love to hear from the Florida Gator fans in terms of how you're feeling about the loss, but I think more importantly, what went wrong and what to do now with the future of Billy Napier. I think the best way to gauge kind of the fan sentiment is just hearing from you guys. Many of you all know I'm a Michigan fan and a college football fan. I would love to hear how the Florida fans are feeling about this one. So let it fly in the comments section. This is something that, we're going to talk a lot about over the next couple of days and weeks. Without further ado, let's get into why I am, probably no longer a Billy Napier supporter. And I wouldn't necessarily label myself as a Billy Napier supporter, but I've been pretty vocal that I would like to see him get year three. And let's see if he can kind of get this ship going in the right direction. That's kind of gone for me at this point. You look at Florida, it is the same problems that we saw the first 2 years. In the first 2 years, you can kind of throw in some excuses and some reasons why it might not be happening on the football field. You go into year three, you have 2, 3 full off seasons with the transfer portal available to fix the personnel problems, to fix the culture problems, and you can't do it. That's the biggest concern for me, because all the same problems that we talked about with this Florida program in 2023, they were still there in 2024. You take a look at the offensive line. They got their tails whooped on the offensive line. Cam Waits was a disaster at tackle. You look at this Miami team, and I know they have an elite pass rush, right? That is going to be one of the better pass rushes that we see in the country, at least in my opinion. Ruben Bain went down in the first quarter, and Florida was still kind of just getting whipped up front, not only in pass protection, but the run game as well. You look at the box score, I don't think it necessarily paints the most accurate picture, right? Montrell Johnson had a 71-yard touchdown run. Outside of that play, I mean, Florida continued to struggle getting the run game going consistently behind the chains. And look, Graham Mertz didn't play his best football. There is no secret about that. Played a relatively bad football game. But when your offensive line, especially as an SEC program, is as uncompetitive as it was against Miami, and quite frankly, as it was in 2023, you're just not going to win many football games. And you go back to the reasons why Billy Napier was brought to this Florida program to begin with. A lot of it was to deal with the development of the offensive line and just being a very physical football team along the lines of scrimmage. We've yet to see that under Billy Napier in Gainesville. Another thing that was extremely frustrating is the penalties. And you look at the box score, I think they had 2 penalties for 25 yards, but the kind of penalties, extremely frustrating, right? The roughing the passers. Those are the kind of things that, we talked about all offseason long and said, if Florida continues to make these kind of mistakes, you cannot continue to make the excuse for Billy Napier. I mean, at some point you have to fix that. Those, I would say, culture penalties, those lack of focus penalties, the discipline penalties, that falls on your head coach. And it's still a problem in crucial moments. Florida's making those mistakes. So you look at that aspect and say, hey, that's not getting better in 2024 either. And I think the lack of just player development is probably the last big thing. Billy Napier has brought in some good players, whether it's in the transfer portal, whether it's on the recruiting trail, but specifically, on the offensive line. Disaster. The player development just has not been there. And so all the reasons that Florida went to go hire Billy Napier in the first place. Discipline, line of scrimmage play, it's non-existent under Billy Napier with Florida in 2024. This is going into year 3. Those are kind of my biggest concerns that I have with Billy Napier as the head coach of this Florida program. You look on defense, 11 missed tackles, multiple blown assignments in the back end. Again, these kind of things that you can't really have if you want to win at the highest level. And let's be frank about it. If Florida plays the way they just played against Miami on Saturday afternoon, they are not going to have a winning season. They are not going to win 6 football games. They're not going to a bowl game. That'll be 3 losing seasons for Billy Napier during his time at Florida. Not acceptable in any sort of imagination. Now, we're going to dive back into this game a couple times over the week, but again, kind of wanted to hop on, talk about one of the bigger talking points really in all of college football, because you look at Florida, it is a premier program across the country. And I think we're going to see a coaching change, probably sooner rather than later if this ship doesn't get going in the right direction. I think the one, I wouldn't even say bright spot, but the one thing we're all looking at is it looks like DJ Lagway might be the guy for the next couple of weeks with Graham Mertz with, I believe, a concussion. Well, I guess let's see what DJ Lagway can do. That's kind of what you're focusing on over the next couple of weeks. Again, wanted to hop on, talk to you guys about how I saw the game, how I see the situation. Whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, would love to hear from you guys in the comments section. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.